Hello everyone, I hope you're well. I hope you're enjoying the start of your weekend. It's Saturday, 11 a.m. and I thought I would create another video. So in my previous video, I created this simple idea for a Christmas card and you could repeat that in different colours. So I'm just going to put that away. And then I thought I'd create another card again using a myriad of designs, and this time I thought I'd use the stencil. In the previous one we used the die, so I thought we'd use the stencil, which is post frame TE snippet SS23, and you can see that that's on your stencil. I've just highlighted that with some black ink just so that you can see that the name is on the stencils. So I thought I would use my little distress oxides just because I like them and they're cute. There we go. So what I'm going to, I love it as well that they're small and I can just store them away in my little tin. I've still got all these bits and pieces I could use that I cut yesterday, so I could use them another time, but I thought we'd use the stencil this time. But first of all, I'm going to grab a piece of 4x6" Pink Frog Super Smooth Card 300 GSM. And we'll create another simple idea. So I'm going to use the bigger snowman this time. So let's take our bigger snowman. There we go. And he's a really good size, he is. Now with your stamps, don't stretch them off. You know, if they're a little bit sticky, just peel them away gently. They are thick, you know, they're really good, thick photopolymer, not acrylic, photopolymer. That makes a massive difference. So let's just take our stamp. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the little oxide inks and I'm going to take the antique linen, and if it doesn't quite work how I want it to, I can easily start again, but these are got a really firm grip. That's how they're meant to, she says as she flicks it off. And I'm going to use my antique linen. This is a Distress Oxide, which is a pigment dye fusion. There we go. Have I got enough ink everywhere? Not that it matters too much. Remember his little hand. There we go. So then I'm just going to decide where this is going. So I think I'll have this here, like so. And I don't have to press really hard. Always keep 2 fingers on there so that you don't get that wobble. But I don't have to press hard. I can just use 1 finger. But we're working with a silhouette stamp here. So with a silhouette stamp, just give that a little bit more time because you've got that silhouette stamp. Just give that a little bit more time. And by giving it a little bit more time, it makes that impression. There's no need to lift any acrylic blocks or anything, or curl the acrylic block, because you're giving that time just to work on there. There we go. So we have our little, well, it's not exactly little, he's a big snowman, isn't he? And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take my little stencil, my 4x4 stencil, which is the post frame. So I think we'll hold this in place because it'll make it much easier. And it's easy to say, no, I'll just wing that, but no, make the effort to just, and because it's 4 inches, it perfectly fits the width of the card that I purposely have cut. So the card's 4 by 6, my stencils are 4 by 4. So it perfectly fits that width, which is rather handy. There we go. So just holds that in place for us. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around with my little don't need any there. So I'm going to get a little blending brush. There we go. So let's just grab a little blending brush. I've now got the smaller blending brushes available, and I've now got ink on this stencil. So I can just blend the ink that I've got on there just onto the card. So the ink is on the stencil, and I'm just blending what ink is on the stencil just onto the background. Now I'm just going to go up to here, and obviously I'm not going to do this bit here. I'm just adding the ink. So I'm just sort of using the ink that is on the stencil. I've not added more ink, and it sort of comes onto my brush. So then I'm going to take the other colour in this set, which is, don't want a dark colour, yeah. Let's use walnut stain. So these all come together in the set. So I'm going to use the walnut stain. And again, I'm literally just going to apply it to the stencil. So I've not applied it to the actual card itself. And then I'm just going to blend that ink onto the background. So I've literally added the ink to the stencil. I've not added it anywhere else. I've just added it to the stencil. And what I'm doing is just picking that ink up from that stencil. Okay. And there's still ink on there that we could use. So let's have a look what we have. Let's remove our low tack tape. So let's just pick this up. There we go, just what you want. So you've got this ink on here that you could reuse and create another print if you wish. But now I've got the basis for my project, which is just wonderful. Let's bring this in. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take a fine brush. That'll be fine. And I'm going to take the walnut stain that I've used around the edge there. So let's take that walnut stain, and we obviously blended this. Sorry, we obviously stamped this with the antique linen. So let's take a little bit of water. So I've not done anything complicated. And what I'm going to do is just come to the edge of my snowman, and I'm going to blend this darker colour. So let's turn that round. And what will happen is, obviously, the antique linen, that's also going to blend as well, because it'll react with that water and that'll blend as well. There we go. So I'm just now giving the snowman a little bit more depth, just with my Distress Oxides. There we go. And I'm using a very small amount of water just so that I do still keep some of that depth. And I'm using that walnut stain just to give me, just like I would if I was using pencils. You know, I'd be using a dark colour. I'm just going into that light colour. So let's grab a little tiny bit of water. We've got that dark there. So let's pick up a little bit more of the dark and just blend that out. So you can see I'm creating some depth in a nice simple way, just with a fine brush, using a tiny bit of ink. Nothing's running away with me. So because I'm being mindful about the amount of water I'm adding, you can see that I'm getting some beautiful depth there. Lovely, simple way to colour. And don't we love simple methods that still look effective? So let's go around here and then we'll just blend that out. So I'm using very little of that water just to give me a little bit of depth. So it just gives it a little bit more depth to the design. And you can see how little of that colour I'm actually using. I'm not using much at all. It's very little, very little. So I can just pick up, if I want a little bit more colour, I can pick up the walnut stain. And it's not using too much water so that everything doesn't run too much and run away with me. Just and because I've already stamped him in the antique linen, it works rather nicely by giving that bit of shading. So let's come round, add a little bit more now. And by using that fine brush, that really helps. So I have control when I'm actually blending. There we go. So I'm getting some lovely shade, some lovely depth, nothing too complicated, and it's working nicely. So let's add a little bit of depth under here. That's better. Go under the scarf. And you can see how long I take just to blend a little bit, and how little water I use. And I find it really therapeutic. You don't have to, you know, do too much. And when you just add that little bit of water, drag it out until there's no water on there, you get a lovely shade. Oh, I love it. Lovely little bit of shading there. So let's just add a little bit more depth around here. There we go. And then you can see I don't add any more water. I just work with what I've got on my brush until it's almost dry. and then I come in again, just with a little bit more. And you can see each time I'm just working with a little bit of that sort of water and colour. So I'm not working with much at all. Let's add a little bit more depth to the bottom. And you can see I'm actually moving the card. It's far easier by moving the card. So I'm going to add a little bit more depth just to the bottom. And you can see it's a little bit darker at the bottom. Let's just come in. And if you dry this, I mean, it's almost drying as I'm doing it because I'm not soaking the card. You can then come in and add a little bit more depth. I do love how that looks with just a little bit of shading. And the only thing we've done is use 2 mini Distress Oxides. We've not done anything out of the ordinary. We've just used 2 sort of really small ink pads and just a little bit of colour, and it just brings it to life. And just be mindful that I don't use too much of that water. Let's pick this up and then we can add a little bit of depth to our little sticky twig hands that he's got. Then we'll add a little bit of definition to the heart. There we go. And then I'm just going to pick up a little bit of colour. And I'm just going to give, so I'm just picking up with whatever moisture's on there. And I'm just being very gentle. I'm getting desperate for water. But if I just place a little bit on there, I won't add too much. Just add a little bit at a time. So I'm just coming in, and you can see I've used all that ink. There's no ink there, but as you can see, our little snowman is then grounded. You can see that, just lovely. Then I want to add a little bit of definition to my hearts. So I'll just take the walnut stain again, tiny bit of water, little bit of that walnut stain, and I'm just going to come in and then I'm just going to take all that off. Just give that, and then you can have a look. Shall we make them all dark? There we go, just so that you've got the hearts on there. Let me come in. So again, it's entirely up to you how you highlight everything. Can you see? And then if you want to add a little bit more, I haven't got the right colour there. If you want to add a little bit more definition, let's just take, you can take, now really you should dry this, but you can take a little bit of a pencil and you can just add a little bit more definition if you wish. You can also just come in and just add a little bit more definition with your pencil if you wish. Now I haven't dried this, you need to dry it, but then again I haven't soaked the card, and the idea is I'm not sort of adding much pencil, it's just a little bit of a tiny touch, just to give a little bit more of that definition. So I'm also again just touching with the pencil. Because you don't really need much, because I love that sort of soft look that we've got. There we go. So I'm just, and you can still see that you've got your highlights where you want them. They're still showing, so you've still got your highlights. Oops, just chuck that on the floor. Just grab a wipe. I've now got wires all messed up everywhere. That's better. So just make sure you've finished with this first. So let's just join that little bit there. Let's move this out of the way. So we've got a lovely sort of definition, shading, lovely blend in a lovely vintage tones. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab our stamps. There we go. I'm going to grab TE22. So TE22, I've got this little bauble here. I'm going to take that one. Take this little bauble, just grab a smaller acrylic block, and then I'm going to ink that with the antique linen. I must admit these little ink pads are perfect for the smaller stamps, really handy. Right, so, ooh, whoops. So then I'm going to add want it sort of there. Shall I take my time before I decide where the bauble's going? So that's just with the oxide ink. Now remember just to give those a clean when you've used your oxide ink, because it will just sit on the surface of your stamp, and then when you come to use your black, it will affect that black. So you just need to be mindful of that. Now there's no definition on this, so let's take our walnut stain. You can't get a simpler way than with colouring than like this. I really couldn't get my words out then. It's a nice, simple, nothing complicated way to just add a simple colouring method that's not too complicated, that absolutely any of us can do. So you've got the dark line there, and then with the tiny bit of water that you've got on there, you can blend that out until there's nothing, like so. And because you've already got that light colour on there, look, you've automatically got shading. Just brilliant. You can't get a much simpler way for colouring than that. So I can come in and I can add another little bit of definition, and I'm not adding much water, just to make that colour a little bit darker. So I can come in and again, with whatever moisture I've got on that brush, I can just blend that out. And because it's not flooded with water, I don't dilute it too much. So it works rather nicely for just giving a lovely bit of shading. Let me lift that up for you. Can you see you've then got a bauble that's beautifully shaded? Again, you can dry that with your heat tool, or you can just let it dry naturally, whichever you want. But you can continue just picking up your colour, and you can come in each time and just add a little bit more of that darkness if you wish. So each time just sort of building up your depth. Now we've got, let's pick up some water. You've got your postage stamp here. You can also sort of dilute a little bit, just so that you soften the edges a little bit, even of your snowman. You can just soften that edge a little bit, so you've naturally got a little bit of shading just naturally around there by just blending that colour out. And just blend this again. And then if you decide again, it's because I'm using such small amounts, you can come in each time just with a little bit more. Because I'm not using too much, you can just come in each time and add a little bit more. So I can pick a little bit more of that up and just blend, then take it and blend it out. So I've just given him a little bit of grounding, just lovely. And I'm going to lift this up just so that you can see. Look how we've got a monochromatic design, but it's still got depth, shading, etc. And it's simple. There's nothing complicated about it at all. So I really like that. Again, just think about where you might want a few more touches of definition. So I might want it a little bit darker just around his hat, and maybe a little bit of tiny touch of that shading just around his nose. And again, I can gently just blend that out with a touch of water. So just look at him and see if you're quite happy. You can use the tiniest amount of ink just to give a little bit more depth if you wish. The problem is it's so addictive you just keep going in and going, oh yes, I could just add a little bit more there. But it's just, it really is addictive just to see how it comes to life with just little touches. Even the bauble, I can come in again and make it even darker, because it's not drowning in water, so it dries quite quickly. And I can come in and just add even more depth, just so you've now got something where you've used 2 little ink pads, nothing else that's complicated, and works really nicely. So then we'll take the snowman text from TE44. Let's put the snowman back. Again, you could change this so he's got a red hat and a red scarf quite easily. So I've got the snowman text, and I think I'm going to use, just for a change, let's use Portobello rather than black. So it's all monochromatic, so I'm using Portobello. Or let's use Portobello and then let's put a little bit of Nocturne along the bottom, just so it's got sort of two-tone. So then we can add snowman here, like so. Now these are your permanent inks, so they won't react with any water. And then you can come in. So what I'm showing you here is how simply you can colour something using simple colouring methods. And look, I'm not using my Inktense pencil here. I'm using the same little distress oxides just to give a little bit of depth round here. Now don't forget, I haven't even added any more water to this. I'm just, whatever little bit of moisture's on there, I'm just using it. And because this is a round brush, this is round number 1, it holds quite a bit of moisture within there, but I've now got a little bit of depth to that. Now, if we would just wipe this up so that you know I'm not using any colour, if I just, if I just pick my brush up, you can see there's colour in there. And then if I just take a little bit extra off, do that on paper, not on your skin. But then I can just bring some natural touch of shading just to that bauble. Again, I've not used any colour. I'm just using what I've already got. So just so that you can see, there's a little bit of shading there, just a natural shading, all monochromatic. And then we can add, let's put TE44 away. We can then take, oh, it's a shock horror, I've not got it out. It's normally on my desk all the time. So let's just put this one back. There we go. And then we'll get TE11, which by now you know it's a favourite. And it must be out because it's not here. There it is. So let's grab TE11. Again, I've not used any other colours. So I'm going to take the walnut stain onto TE11, and I can just highlight a little bit of that text. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of text. Oh yes, perfect. There, take a little bit. I can just highlight an area I want with my little ink pad. just add, oh, just lovely. There we go. Now don't forget, wipe your stamp because you've put that oxide ink on there. I do find these super cute. And they don't take up much room. But now, can you see I've added a little bit of text, which gives a little bit more definition. So nice simple card, easily done. Now let's go and add our own backing paper. So we'll take that walnut stain. And then I'm just going to swipe down here. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect. But I'm creating my own backing paper now. It's going to coordinate beautifully. I've got my smaller brush. I've got this ink all on here. So now I can just blend what, oh, we can have a little bit of debris. So I can just blend what ink is on there, going around, just to soften that a little bit. So because I've not sort of gone over and over and over, it's got a little bit of a grain, the background has. So it's like I've created my own background paper. So then let's just wipe this. You could obviously create another background with that quite easily. And then I'm just going to add some water here. Let's close my little tin. Pick up the water with my fan brush, and then I'm just going to go round, add a little bit of texture onto the background, just to create my own little backing sheet. There we go. Then we'll just take a little bit of kitchen towel just to wipe up our area, especially with us creating the card. So I can just leave that for a moment doing its thing. So by just adding little splatters, it's just going to give me a little bit of texture. But by sort of swiping the small ink pad and not pressing too hard, I haven't got it sort of solid, all solid colour like this. So it's like I've created my own little background piece. So I can then just blot that, just so that it's not too wet. I'll then take my adhesive. And the only reason Tracy's shaking that is because I need to fill it up, and I've said that on about 10 videos now, and I still haven't filled it up. But it works every single time. There we go. Let's add this to my own paper in the background. I've created my own background paper that coordinates beautifully, and I've just done that again out of Pink Frog Super Smooth card. You see, I just think that's really classy. And then add that to a 5x7 card blank. So let's bring this there we go. Add that to your card blank. There we go. It's fresh, it's classy, it's not overly done. I love it. You can even add a little bird if you wish, but for me personally, that's finished. So I'll lift this up so you can see all those details. Just give that a little bit of a clear away, just so that you're not left with any sort of dry glue on there. And then if we lift that up, we've created that from 2 tiny ink pads. So I hope you've enjoyed that simple idea, and I hope you'll give that a go. And you can easily post that because there's no cut out pieces whatsoever. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.